Beamy, greater than 19 years old guy, still living with mom and grandpa in small town. Grandpa always quiet, steady, like a rock. Never complained, never raised his voice once. But that night, something felt different. He held my hand at dinner longer than usual. Looked at me like he was memorizing my face. I laughed it off, didn't think too much. Next morning, I woke up to screaming. Grandpa's heart had stopped overnight, just gone. House felt empty in a way I can't describe. Everyone crying. I couldn't even process it. Then I found an old chest in his room. Inside was a folded letter with my name. My life has to end, so yours can go on. I froze reading that, hands shaking hard. What the hell did he mean by that? Did he know this was coming, plan for it? Or was it some kind of goodbye I wasn't ready for? I couldn't stop thinking about that letter. So I started asking Mom if she knew anything. She got quiet, eyes down, wouldn't tell me. But I knew something was hidden in this house. Days later, I found documents in his desk. Turns out he'd refused treatment for years. Chose to save the money for my education instead. My chest caved reading those papers in my hands. He literally sacrificed his life so I'd have a future. Every memory of him at the table hit me harder. Him smiling, telling me to study, to aim higher. While inside, he was running out of time quietly. Then I found his old notebook tucked away. On one page. When he finds out, it'll be too late. But that's the only way. I sat there whispering why, over and over. Why didn't he let me choose, let me help? Was it selfless love or selfish silence? I couldn't shake those words from my head. When he finds out, it'll be too late. Too late for what? Too late to stop him? I started spiraling, blaming myself for not noticing. Every smile he gave me now felt like a lie. Like he was already saying goodbye in silence. Kept asking myself if I would have done something. If I had known he was skipping treatment, would I have begged him to fight, to stay longer? Or would I have just hated him for suffering through it? The guilt weighed heavier than anything else. Was he protecting me, or just deciding for me? The line between love and selfishness blurred hard. I sat on my bed clutching that notebook, feeling like I lost him all over again that night. Grief mixed with anger, confusion, admiration too. My chest hurt more than any heartbreak before. How do you thank someone who dies for you? How do you forgive them for leaving so soon? A month later, knock at the door late evening. A man in military uniform stood on our porch. Mom froze when she saw him, eyes wide. He asked for me, said he knew my grandpa. Invited him in, sat at our worn kitchen table. Then told me a story I wasn't ready for. Years ago, during the war, Grandpa saved his life. Pulled him out of gunfire, nearly died himself. This soldier swore he'd repay that debt forever. Said Grandpa asked him to watch over us quietly. Apparently he'd been helping behind the scenes. Paying bills, sending anonymous money for medicine. All these years, we thought it was random mistakes. But it was him, keeping the promise to my grandpa. I sat there stunned, Mom crying into her hands. My grandpa's sacrifice didn't end with his death. He had built a system of kindness that lived on. I couldn't believe what I was hearing that night. All those times Mom said bank made a mistake. All those envelopes of cash that showed up randomly. It was never luck, never coincidence, it was him. Grandpa planned it, so we'd always be okay. Even after his death, he made sure we weren't alone. I felt both proud and crushed at the same time. He carried all that weight without telling a soul. The soldier said, "Your grandpa was the bravest man I knew." My throat closed up. I couldn't even answer. I wanted to scream that I didn't deserve him, that I never even got to say thank you. But all I could do was nod, tears blurring everything. After the soldier left, I sat by Grandpa's photo. The silence in the house hit harder than ever. His chair by the table was empty forever. But somehow his presence felt stronger than before, like he was still pulling strings from beyond, still making sure we survived. Days turned into weeks, and we kept finding things. Old receipts tucked into his books, notes and margins. Little reminders that everything he did was for us. He wrote down birthdays with "don't forget gifts." Wrote grocery lists that always included my favorites. It felt like he was still looking after us in secret. One night, I found another letter in his coat pocket. "Don't be angry when you learn the truth. Anger means I failed." I broke down on the floor holding that note. Because anger was exactly what I felt mixed with grief. I wanted him here, not just his lessons. But the more I read, the more I understood. This wasn't about me forgiving him. It was about me learning what love really costs. And realizing strength isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's quiet, stubborn sacrifice in the shadows. The kind that no one sees until it's too late. Weeks after his funeral, I kept replaying it all. That last dinner, the way he held my hand longer. The way he smiled like he knew something I didn't. I realized he'd already said goodbye without words. The letter, the notebook, the soldier's story. They weren't random pieces, they were his plan. Grandpa had mapped out his exit with precision. Not for himself, but to keep us safe and steady. It hit me that he died exactly how he lived. Quietly, without asking for credit, just for us. I hated him for it, but loved him even more. It felt unfair to carry this heavy secret, but also impossible not to honor what he chose. So I made a promise at his grave one night. I told him I'd live a life worth his sacrifice, that his death wouldn't be wasted on me. The cold air carried my words, and I swear I felt him listening. Standing there, I finally stopped asking why, and started asking how I could make him proud. A month later, another envelope showed up. This one had no money, just a single note. Your grandpa believed in you. Don't let him down. I never found out who left it, maybe the soldier. But it didn't matter. The message was clear. His influence was everywhere, even after death. Friends of his started telling stories too. How he'd fix cars for free, buy groceries for neighbors. Things he never bragged about, never even mentioned. I realized we only knew half of who he was. The other half was scattered in other people's lives. It made me proud, but also so damn small. Like I'd never measure up to his quiet greatness. But maybe that was the point. He wasn't asking me to. He just wanted me to keep going. That was enough. Every story I heard made me miss him more, but also reminded me that he never really left. I started visiting his grave almost every week. Would sit there and talk like he was listening. Told him about school, about mom, about little things. Sometimes I'd even joke, just to hear myself laugh. It felt stupid at first, but then comforting. Like his silence was still answering me somehow. One evening I brought my exam results with me. Whispered, I passed, Grandpa. You paid for this. My throat burned saying it out loud. Because that education literally cost his life. Yet I could almost hear him say he was proud. The wind that night felt warm, not cold. For the first time since he died, I smiled there. And I realized grief can coexist with gratitude. Pain doesn't erase the love that made it. That was the moment I started healing. Still, questions haunted me late at night. Was it fair he never told us the truth? Was it selfish to carry that secret alone? I kept flipping between anger and admiration. Sometimes I wanted to scream at him for leaving. Sometimes I just wanted one more hug. Then I'd remember the soldier's story again. How Grandpa saved his life without hesitation. How that one act of courage rippled into ours. And maybe that was his lesson all along. That real love doesn't ask permission, it just acts. Whether or not people ever understand it. I lay awake staring at the ceiling one night, thinking how much of my life is built on his choices. My education, our home, even our safety. All pieces of him still living in me. And I knew I couldn't waste it. Months passed, but his presence never faded. Every corner of the house had traces of him. His chair by the window, his coat on the rack. The smell of tobacco still lingering faintly in the air. I'd sit in his chair sometimes just to feel close. Imagine him watching me the way he always did. Quiet, calm, but protective without saying a word. One day, I found an old photo album in the attic. Pictures of him young, in uniform, smiling wide. He looked fearless, nothing like the quiet man I knew. On the back of one photo he had scribbled, "Every life I save my family too." I broke down right there in the dust. His whole life had been about protecting us. He didn't just sacrifice in silence, he fought for us first. And it made me wonder how many stories died with him. How many lives he touched that I'll never even know. Another time, I overheard Mom on the phone. She was crying softly, thanking someone. I asked her after, and she finally admitted. Grandpa had arranged small payments to keep coming. He wanted to make sure we'd never struggle. Even after death, he was still providing for us. It felt unreal, like he was reaching from the grave. I told Mom about the letters I found. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face. We both realized we'd only seen half the man. The rest was hidden under layers of sacrifice. That night we lit a candle by his picture. Mom whispered, "Thank you, love." I couldn't say anything. I just cried silently. Because thank you would never feel like enough. A year later, people still came to our door. Neighbors, strangers, even kids I didn't recognize. All of them had stories about my grandpa. How he fixed their roof for free one winter. How he bought groceries when they couldn't afford it. How he slipped money into mailboxes without a word. We realized he had built an invisible web of kindness. Quiet, good deeds that no one could trace back. And it wasn't about being remembered. It was about making sure others had a chance. I stood there listening, jaw tight, eyes wet. He had been building legacies in silence all along. Not for glory, not for credit, just for love. And I thought, maybe that's the kind of strength I want too. Not loud, not obvious, but undeniable. One evening, a man about my age showed up. Said he was the soldier's son, the one Grandpa saved. He thanked me, said, "Your grandpa's actions saved my life too." I was confused. Then he explained carefully. "Because he saved my father, I even exist. And because I exist, I can thank you now." I swear my heart cracked wide hearing that. Grandpa's single act in war rippled through generations. Not just saving one man, but entire families. I shook his hand, couldn't even speak a word. Just felt this weight of pride and grief together. Like Grandpa's shadow stretched further than I ever knew. And once again, I realized he wasn't really gone. Pieces of him lived in everyone he touched. And it hit me. This is what legacy actually means. As time went on, I stopped asking why he hid it. Stopped torturing myself with the what-ifs. Instead, I started asking how I could carry it forward. How do you live a life worthy of sacrifice? Every decision I made, I heard his voice. "Make it count, kid. Don't waste what I gave you." I studied harder, pushed through even when exhausted. Because failing didn't feel like an option anymore. His choice had bought me every opportunity one had. And I wasn't about to throw that away. Still, some nights the guilt crept back in. Anger too, because I never got to argue with him. Never got to tell him I'd rather have him alive. But then I'd remember his handwriting in that notebook. Anger means I failed. And I'd breathe deep, letting the anger go. Because he didn't want me chained to bitterness. He wanted me free to live. One night I sat by his picture, candle lit. I whispered everything I never got to say. That I loved him, that I hated him, that I forgave him. That I'd carry his lessons for the rest of my life. And I swore to keep giving like he did. Not for praise, but because it mattered. The room was quiet, but I felt him there. Like the silence was his way of listening. I realized then the greatest gift he left me. Not the money, not the education, not the help, but the understanding of what love really is. Love that doesn't count the cost, just gives anyway. And that night, I finally felt peace. Because even though he was gone, his last act was still shaping every choice I made. And maybe that was the point all along. Months later, I still caught myself expecting him. His cough from the hallway, his footsteps at night. Grief is strange, it makes ghosts out of habits. But instead of breaking me, it started guiding me. I tried to live like he taught without words. Helped neighbors quietly, gave without expecting thanks. Each small act felt like keeping him alive. Like every time I chose kindness, he was smiling. Grandpa didn't leave money, he left a blueprint. A life where love was the only currency. And now it was my turn to spend it. One evening, staring at his photo, it hit me. He never asked for gratitude, never wanted praise. He just wanted us to live and live fully. His death became the loudest lesson of my life. Sometimes strength isn't roaring, it's silent sacrifice. Sometimes heroes don't wear medals, they sit at dinner tables. And sometimes their last act echoes forever in us. I wipe my eyes, whisper, I won't waste it. So I'll ask you guys straight up. Would you forgive a loved one for hiding the truth until the end? Or would you call it selfish, even if it saved you? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I want to know. And if this story hit you, like and subscribe. There are more real stories waiting to be told.